Welcome to Book Huddle. I'm your host, Karen Reader with Readgab. Today, our guest is J.A. White, and he writes just these fantastic spooky books. If you have ever heard of Nightbooks, it's also a Netflix show based on his book, and it's just, creeps me out in just the right way. And he had a recent release in the last year, Wish Monster. We're going to talk about that today. But first, I'd love to just break the ice with a book-themed question. We're going to use Matilda. So, thinking of Bruce when he just has to eat all of the chocolate cake as a punishment by the Trench Bowl, and he has to eat and eat, what would be the perfect punishment for you if you had to just keep eating something, Jerry?
Oh, well, hey, Karen. That's kind of an easy one for me because I have an unhealthy obsession with hummus. So,
Hummus.
and hummus, yes. So if you take one of those like giant, things of hummus that you might get at like Costco and you put it in
Yes.
front of me and hand me some chips or vegetables, I will gradually work my way through that and not get tired of it. So, yes, I am a huge hummus fan.
Oh, that is perfect. And that's reasonably that's a as far as health goes kind of thing. At least it's
Well,
not
unless you
the
eat as much of
chocolate.
it as I do, yes,
All
theoretically it
things
is
in moderation, right? Maybe you shouldn't eat that much hummus. Your belly might not thank you.
healthy.
Oh my goodness. That's that was an unexpected one. But I love that. I love the unexpected. All right. Jerry, tell us three things about you that are not you're an author. What else can you tell us about you?
I'm also a teacher, so I teach fifth grade language arts.
Awesome.
So, and the kids, think it's pretty cool that I have this side hustle,
Yes.
that I do. So, other random things. I don't know how to swim.
Oh,
So, yes, I grew up in an island, well, Staten Island, so not like a real island, but
but
I
still, you
never,
were near
yeah,
water.
I never learned how to swim.
Could you
So
swim
that
to save your life if there weren't like crazy storm and waves? Could you
I'd rather that did not happen.
you just don't want to find
I
out?
just yeah, I think that might end badly. I know there was this horror movie in the 70s,
Okay.
and I remember seeing it when I was very little, where they had like the plastic cover
Hmm.
would close and there was somebody
Oh,
underneath it and they couldn't get out, and that was like
right.
my nightmare for
Oh
for
my
a
gosh.
while. Yeah, which really it doesn't matter because I can't swim either anyway, so it might as well have a plastic cover. I'm doomed.
Oh my gosh.
Um, and then the third thing is my favorite animal is a platypus.
A
So
platypus. Cool.
yeah.
Like you could be a Phineas and Ferb, have a pet platypus if they'd let you, right?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I used to watch that show all the time with my kids. So
Yes, that's what I always think of when I think platypus.
oh yeah,
Where's
absolutely.
Perry? That's awesome. All right. Well, tell us about your newest book, Wish Monster. Give us the elevator pitch. What is it about?
Sure. So Wish Monster is about a boy named Hudson, and he meets this girl, Violet. Well, she's in his class, but they
Right.
kind of like end up walking home together one day, and she introduces him to her dog, Midnight, who he thinks has been dead for quite some time. So he's like a little bit confused.
Am I
He's the
remembering
only
this right?
one. Yeah, right, exactly. He's the only one that remembers
Okay.
that this dog had died. Everyone else thinks the dog has been fine,
Right.
but Violet is a little bit like disturbed on why he thinks this. And so, as we find out, Violet has indeed asked for a wish from a wish monster who
Right.
lives in the cave in New Jersey, as wish monsters often do. And part of that wish is she got her dog back that had died, but the world kind of changed that nobody remembered the dog dying in the first place except for this one random boy, Hudson. And that's sort of where like the story begins.
Oh, okay. So we've got this cave of wonders where
Mhm.
there is a monster who can grant wishes. So what is the problem then, Jerry, with wishes? What's the problem of having wishes granted then in real life or in
Well, I mean,
lesson?
it's funny. Like in stories, of course, it never goes well, and there's no satisfaction as a reader. As somebody, asks for a wish, they get it, and they live happily ever after.
Yay!
Yeah,
All my dreams
exactly.
came true. The end.
That never happens. So I always think there's this idea that when things come too easily to you and you haven't really worked for them, they because that kind of like unearned quality
Right.
um tends to be where things go wrong. So I think like even as people, there might be part of us that if things are like we feel like some people have had things like handed to them, or it feels
Right.
like everything's always going right, part of us always resents them. That's just like human nature, and I
Right.
think that kind of plays into the wishes as well. And then the other thing is when you do a book about wishes, is there's this sort of like vast like subgenre of like wish kind of book. So your job as an author, and what I tried to do here, is you have to think of things to do that haven't been done before, and
Right.
that's kind of fun, to
Oh,
take a genre that's been done a lot and try to put your own twist on it.
yes. How can I make this different and
Mhm.
appealing? Excellent. So, did you seek out when you were, how did Wish Monster come to be? Why did you think of the title, like this premise? How did this come?
So, the original draft of this book actually took place at a summer camp.
Cool.
And it was very different. So I ended up revamping this one a lot because it just wasn't working out for a number of reasons. I think that with a lot of the books that I write, I tend to take something that I think is interesting, and just like I was saying, try to put my own spin on it. So for Shadow School, it was ghosts. Like, what could I do that was a little bit different with ghosts? With night books, I would say probably fairy tales, more or less. So I just kind of take one element that's been done a lot, and it's almost like trying to put my own little footprint in this whole like sands of literature to make it sound very fancy.
That's awesome. So what would you want a kid to take away? If they're reading Wish Monster, is there something that you hope that they'll take away from that? As far as, I mean, besides the love of reading, because that's the ultimate goal, of
Right.
course. What kind of takeaway would you hope for?
So it's funny, you touch on that, and I feel like my number one job as an author, as a children's author, is if I can get kids to sit with my book and read it and enjoy it, and that pushes them on to other books, and
Yes.
almost like this is I don't want to say like I'm a salesman for books, but in a way I think all children's
Yeah,
authors are. Like, we
right. To keep it
want.
going, keep that love going, but it's not a one and done.
Exactly. And it doesn't need to be like they hop to my book. Like, I want kids who that read.
Yes.
Being a teacher as well, this is sort of like my life's work. So there is that, and that's just writing, an entertaining book.
Absolutely. Because
Um,
if you can't entertain, they're not going to keep reading with it.
exactly. But then I think that what tends to happen through all my books is I tend to gravitate toward uh, characters who solve things through a combination of empathy, intelligence, and creativity. Like, those are usually the superpowers of my characters, and I think those are the things that I want kids to have in the real world. So it's
Yes.
not so much a lesson or a theme, or it's just seeing how these characters go about solving these problems.
Are traits that you would hope that a
Yes.
child would have. I like that.
Yep.
So you said empathy. What are the other traits? Empathy.
Empathy, creativity, and intelligence. Those are
I
the
love
three.
it. Empathy, creativity, intelligence. Beautiful. All right. So tell me about in night books
Mhm.
how these play into it. Let's do the brief what Night Books is about, and
Sure.
then tell how this can play into it. Because Night Books is much scarier. So Wish Monster, we're thinking, it's spooky. If you're watching, you can see we've got kind of a spooky cover, a monster in a cave. It's spooky, but it's not really scary. I find Night Books straight up middle grade scary. All right, like in an appropriate way to scare a child, it's scary.
Oh, I can't wait to talk about the book that's coming out. So yeah, it is funny. Like, my books definitely have different levels. So like Shadow School and Wish Monster are like spooky but not too
Right.
scary. Whereas the Thickety is very dark, and Night Books for sure is
Yes.
scary as well. So yeah, the pitch for Night Books is basically a boy named Alex lives in an apartment building, and he's left in the middle of the night, and we're not really exactly sure why. We find out later that he has gone downstairs to the boiler room to burn this book of short stories that he has written. And through, magic, he ends up at the apartment of this witch named Natasha,
Right.
who keeps him prisoner. But he has to come up with a different scary story to tell her each night, or that's it. So it's very Arabian Nights. So sort of the genesis for that is, and I do this a lot. I kind of mash up things that I like,
Yes.
which is Arabian Nights, and I wanted an excuse to write short stories, and I like stories within stories, and that tends to happen a lot in all my books.
Right. Yeah. Like some of these stories that this kid in the story is writing, I was just like, "Ah!" But one of the reasons that I love this so much in Night Books is like this character, he's worried about the fact that he likes the scary and
Mhm.
the dark things, right? And my kid, I have a kid like that,
Oh,
that
okay.
people find it a little bit strange. Some of he's like, I just like death. And so I had been like trying to find ways that that was okay and not concerning, right? And so why do you think there is a place? Why does there need to be a place for kind of the spooky and the dark amongst middle grade books?
Oh, that's a great question. So I was a kid like that growing up as well. And it's funny, like every writer I've met who, works in that space of horror, they're always like the nicest people. Like there is this theory
They're
that you
not
get all that
weird.
darkness out on the page.
Uh-huh.
So I think that one of the jobs of books is there is a almost like a perfect book and a perfect genre for every reader,
Yes.
and you just want everything available out there so that whatever you need is there. And certain kids just like to be scared, and that has a really bold attraction to them, and I don't find it myself any odder than a child who is fascinated with a particular sport, and or a child who is fascinated with dance, or it's an obsession, but I don't think it's like an unhealthy one.
Right.
uh, it's just an interest, and when you think about it, I mean, it's the one thing we like all have in common is we're all going to die someday. So
Yeah.
you're going to be interested in something. That's one of the big things to sort of be
Yeah.
interested in. And it's fun too, because when you're scared within the pages of a book, it's being scared safely. You can
Yes.
close the book at any time. There is that escape hatch if it gets to be too much. So it's a real way to kind of like be interested in something in a way that is safe.
Yes, I really like that too. And you can almost skim through parts
Mhm.
that you're just like, okay, that's too much for me. Because you can choose in your head how much you're seeing of what you're reading, right?
Totally. Yes.
And but in a movie, you can't really.
Right.
Unless you're going to close your eyes or walk out of the room, you don't get to choose to filter what's going in. But
Now, the
I
flip of that is sometimes what you imagine in your head is worse than what they show you in the
that's true.
movie,
That
because
is
you're
so
putting it
true.
through your lens of, well, what would scare me personally the most? And then you're stuck with it. So, but
Because, yeah, as a reader, you take a book and you make it your own, right?
that's true.
And you interpret it differently. Because sometimes when I'll watch a movie that is based on a book, I'll be like, that didn't happen, or that's not in the book.
Oh,
And then I'll
sure.
go back and change and or read it again. I'll go back and reread it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it was in the book, but I remember it differently because I've made that story my own in my head.
Yeah, when you write a book, it's kind of like a contract between you and the reader. And I always think it's interesting that and every kid who reads my book is having a completely different experience,
Right.
because they're filtering it through their own lives and their own thoughts, and that's really, really cool. That's why I'm like honored that I get to do this.
Yes, that is so. So tell me what it was like. You've got night books. How
Mhm.
was it when you were approached to have that made into film on Netflix?
Oh yeah, that was crazy. And the way it works, and lots of books get optioned, but they don't
Mhm.
often actually get made. Uh,
Oh, so yeah, I guess and that would be a bummer to be like,
oh
we
yeah, for
kind of think
sure.
about making it and then it never gets that far, right?
And it does happen quite a bit. So there was a lot of, kind of waiting around even after they agreed to make it in principle to see if it would actually get greenlit. And strangely enough, this was at the time of the pandemic. And so what happened is this was one of the first movies that was made after the shutdown of production, because it is just three people in an apartment.
Right.
And so it was kind of a good one to
You
film.
didn't need a large number of cast. Cool.
Right. Yeah. And so they actually built everything like in that movie is built in a set across the street from like a Home Depot in
Cool.
Toronto. And so it was like a really, really safe set. And so that was, I think, actually kind of helped it get pushed to the top of the pile,
Cool.
strangely enough. Yeah.
What did you love about it when you saw it for the first time, when you saw your
Oh,
book themed as a movie? Tell me something you loved about watching it.
well, I love that Sam Raimi's name was in the credits because when I was growing up, I used to be such a fan of like the Evil Dead movies and things like that. So the fact that he, produced it and had actually like read my book, I thought that was like the
Cool.
coolest thing because he was like an inspiration growing up. Oh my gosh, there were lots of things to love, but I think that okay, let me pick like two random things.
Okay.
One is I really love the music.
Yeah.
I think that did a great job with that. And then in the background, so before I'd actually seen the movie, they were sending me photos from the set. I would have been able to visit the set if it hadn't been for the pandemic, so I wasn't able
Okay.
to go on set. And so they were sending me all the things that the artists were doing, with the library or with the even like paintings on the walls in the background. It was all like handcrafted over many months.
Cool.
And when you see it in the movie, it's literally like 1 second
Oh,
just passes and you just and so I think that I just really I like appreciate the set design because I had seen it kind of come together and I know how painstaking it was and how long it took. And then to see it, really it works well in the movie, but it's just like kind of like an hour in the background, but it's amazing. So I'm gonna go with that for today. Tomorrow you could ask me and I could tell you something
something
different that I
different,
love.
right? I
Yeah.
bet we could talk about that all day, just to have an
Oh yeah.
episode about the movie. So it made me think of something then. When you were creating Wish Monster,
Mhm.
what was something that maybe is just a small part of the book, but took you a lot of time?
Oh wow.
You think
That's a
of
great
something like that?
question.
That's kind of
I can. So one of the things that I wanted to oh, so I'm not a person who outlines. I'm
okay. Oh,
a
so
person
you're a pantser, is that what they call
answer. Yes, yes. Who taught me that? Chris Grabenstein, I think.
it? Nice.
Who wrote Mr. Lemoncello's
Yeah,
Library.
Mr.
Uh,
Limoncello and
yes,
all of the
we were on a panel together and we were talking about how we write, and all the other authors were like, well, I make these exhaustive outlines. And then I was like, I just kind of make it up. And he's like, oh, you're a pantser. And I'd never heard that
right?
expression. Um,
Yes.
so a lot of times, because of that, I do tend to rewrite things until I feel like they're about right. And the scene I couldn't get right was when Violet first goes in the cave and she kind of has her first interaction with the wish monster
Okay.
who's unseen, is in the back somewhere. But I was trying to think of a cool way for her to make a wish. And honestly, it's funny. I don't even remember all the ideas I rejected because once they're gone out of my head, they're gone. But I wrote it, I'm going to say like 6 or 7 different ways
Cool.
until I eventually decided that, well, wishing wells would work. But instead of getting 3 wishes, what if you had 3 choices and you had to pick one?
Nice.
And that you're presented with the 3 things that you want the most. I thought that was kind of intriguing idea, and
That's
I'd
cool.
never really heard of that being done before, so that was what I went with. So there's these 3 wishing wells, and you look into their waters, and you see the thing that you no 3 things that you want most, but you only have 1 coin to put into the well.
Right.
And so that idea took a while to kind of like come up with.
I like that you took something familiar, like a wishing well,
Mhm.
and turned it into something different.
Yeah, that tends to be what I do, and I'm not really sure why. It's just the way I'm wired.
That's cool. That's
Yeah.
cool. So, would you be willing to share with us a wish that you would make if you were standing there with a coin in the Wish Monster's Cave
Ooh, trying to think of something
without
like,
having to worry about consequences of how the world would change.
yeah, no, and nothing like too big, like world peace or, let me see. I mean, my family's health is good, but I'm trying to
Of
think of
course,
something like
right?
fun. I think that, oh my gosh, this is a really hard one.
Right? I love that. Like something
I,
that's so themed on you as the author, but have you ever thought about it if you
I'll
were in the character's shoes, right? You're going to be the main character now and have to make
I'll
a
give you a random one. Like if I had to wish for something for myself,
yes.
um,
You
I
have to
never
be selfish right now.
right, I will be selfish. I never have enough time to read, so I
Okay.
want a chair that when you sit in it pauses time.
Ooh,
So
I
it's a
love
reading
it.
chair, but you can read there for as many hours as you want, but in the real world, time doesn't go forward.
Nice. Oh, I love that.
So,
I think that's the making of a book right there.
yeah, seriously, I was like, that's not actually a bad idea. I should think about that.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. All right, then tell us what's in the works then for you of what's coming up. What else are
Sure.
you working on?
So what I'm currently working on is a novel that I'm like not ready to share anything because I don't really know it's going to happen yet. But
Right? You
different
can't say anything out loud on record.
yeah, because it could all change. But the book that is actually done,
Okay.
and will be coming out in September. I think September 2nd. It's called Dark and Darker Still, and it is a collection of short stories. So that was one thing that was I've heard a lot since Nightbooks is people wanted a short story book,
Wow.
and there's 28 stories in it, and the premise is there's three sections. There's dark, darker, and darker still,
Okay.
and each section gets gradually scarier. So
Ah.
as you read the book, the stories get frightening, and I
Don't
will
start with the last story if you don't know if you can handle scary yet. Start with the beginning of the book.
I will go on record now saying this is easily my scariest book. Like this
Yeah.
one, I'm just flat out trying to give kids nightmares. So some of the last stories, even with my editor, I was like, "You sure
Is
this is
this gonna
okay?"
fly? Can I feed this to a child?
So yeah, we'll see. I'm expecting some angry emails, but it'll be good. But I'm really happy
Well,
with
it's
that.
not like it's being pitched as hopeful, happy, dream
No.
setting goals. You know what I mean? It
And
is
the other thing is
pitched as what it is.
it's fully illustrated. So there's an
Oh,
artist named Yan Jian who
okay.
has illustrated every single story in the book. So there's a
Nice. A
definite
single
like
illustration per story?
single illustration per story.
Nice.
Yeah, and they are horrifying. Like some of them,
Like
it's very
makes
like
it like
scary
it's like,
stories to
man,
tell in
this
the dark.
picture made the story scarier,
Yeah,
right?
there are some where I was like, the story was scary, but I think the picture was worse.
I love
Um,
that. Like to go hand in hand, that you need them both together,
yeah.
right? To have the
Um,
ultimate effect.
so
That's
I
awesome.
think it's going to be really really cool, and kids will love it.
So that's September, so that will be perfect for Halloween kind of
Definitely, yeah.
scary time. It seems like there's three, it's always a good time to go read a spooky book,
Mhm,
but it seems like there's like three times a year, right? There's summer because we're
mhm.
getting together, campfire kind of stuff, and then of course Halloween, and then for some reason Christmas and winter, right? Scary ghost stories and tells of the glories.
Yeah,
Right.
and I do have a Christmas scary story in that book,
Oh, do you?
so
Cool.
yeah.
Like,
But you're right. Christmas is a very, I think it's because of Dickens and all the ghosts, maybe.
yes.
But it is kind of like a creepy time of year.
Right? And even if you don't celebrate Christmas, it's just something about coming inside when it's cold. You know what
Hmm.
I mean? And curling up and getting that spooky feeling while it's cold outside,
For sure.
right?
Oh, looking forward to it. It's my favorite time of year.
Right? Oh, awesome. Yeah. Well, I'm so glad it's finally quit snowing. On April 1st, where I live, it did snow. So
Oh my
I'm
gosh.
be done with the snow. I am ready for the summer. So that is so awesome. All right, Jerry, tell me one of your favorite books. It can be from when you were a kid or now. Besides your own brilliant work, what's one of your favorite children's books?
So I am going to choose, I brought it here, The Book of Lost Things by
Okay.
John Connolly.
Okay.
And
I
so
have
it's,
seen that cover, but do you know I don't know what it's about?
okay. So it's a fantasy novel about a boy whose mom dies, and he goes into an alternate world that is both very similar in some ways to our world, but very different as well. And it's really about him dealing with the grief of his mother's death, but it also has lots and lots of other um, stories as well that kind of like spin together. This is another story within stories book,
Okay, cool.
and
So it's
parts of
got
it
little
are
short stories, but there's all one overarching story.
yes.
Okay.
And the thing that I like the most about it, so John Connolly, he also writes these mystery novels for adults, the Charlie Parker series, and he
Cool.
is just an amazing wordsmith. Like there are like I read this book with just pure jealousy, because there are just sentences in there that are just so beautifully crafted.
Right?
And so it's just like this luscious prose, and all his books are like that. But this one I feel like really does that, extremely well, and it reads beautifully aloud as well.
So one that you could just reread
Oh yeah,
because
I've reread it a couple of times for sure.
nice, nice, because of the beauty of the writing and then also just the so tell me a theme past grief that you find in this book that
Acceptance.
accept.
I think that there's a lot of characters in this book who, don't fit into the norm for one reason or another, and it's about the value of acceptance, which I think is a really important theme as well.
Cool, cool. Is there anything, thinking back to when you were a youth, that you think your youthful self would want your adult self to write? Have you ever thought about that in your creation of writing?
Honestly, yes, and I think it was a short story book.
Nice.
'Cause
So
that
you've got
was
that
yeah,
coming up. That's why it's
yeah, and Nightbooks was like kind of like heading that direction as well. That has that aspect of it because I wrote so many of them when I was a kid. Like I would sometimes write, more than one a night, and I would fill entire books. So I think that I've always kind of like had that in me, and a love for that form, which is extremely different than a novel.
right,
And
right.
and so I've always wanted to do that. So yes, I would say that.
Very cool. Very cool. So did any of these short stories that you wrote as a kid come into Night Books or this one that's coming out in September this year? Did anything survive from your
I
youth?
Not that I know. At least not consciously. I mean, maybe subconsciously. I
Right.
should probably like
Does
I
any
mean,
did anything survive? Like, do you
there
have
might
any of
be
your
a
notebooks from
bin
when you were
at
a
my
kid?
parents' house that has some old stories. I should probably go through
You
that.
should go revisit and see
Yeah.
if there's anything worth incorporating or maybe that you already did.
Yeah, that would be fun, actually. That's a really good idea. I'm gonna do that.
That's cool. That's cool. Well, thank you so much, Jerry.
Of
I
course.
love your work, and we will include in the description below how people can find you about your current books and where to find you online. And just thanks for being on with us today.
Thanks so much, Karen. It's my pleasure.